In recent years, the science of attachment has revealed something extraordinary, not just about humans, but about animals as well. At the core of the bonds we form, especially with pets, lies a powerful neurochemical called oxytocin. Often referred to as the love hormone, oxytocin plays a key role in creating social bonds, fostering trust, and generating feelings of warmth and connection. It is released in both humans and animals during moments of affection, touch, eye contact, and even during shared experiences of calm. When we look into our dog's eyes, pet our cat, or speak gently to a bird, we are not just engaging in sentimental behavior. These acts trigger oxytocin release in both parties. This reciprocal neurochemical loop is what allows deep bonds to form across species. Dogs, for instance, have evolved to be incredibly attuned to human faces and vocal tones. In one study, researchers found that mutual gazing between dogs and their owners led to increased levels of oxytocin in both. This mirrors the hormonal feedback loop observed between human mothers and infants. That's not an exaggeration, it's a biological fact. Your dog doesn't just like you. Its brain is chemically wired to bond with you. The same is true to varying degrees for other animals. Cats, though more independent, still experience oxytocin in release through touch and familiarity. Birds that form strong attachments to their owners often demonstrate oxytocin-driven behavior through mimicry, singing, and proximity seeking. These behaviors are not just instinctual, they are regulated by internal states of brain chemistry designed to maximize connection and survival. Why does this matter? Because understanding this changes how we interpret our pets' needs. They are not simply driven by food, shelter, or territory. Those are the basics. What they truly seek is connection, emotional, sensory, and even hormonal. Pets are hardwired to bond because in their evolutionary past, closeness increased the odds of safety and cooperation. In social animals, oxytocin not only promotes trust, but also reduces stress. A pet lying next to you isn't just resting, it may be chemically self-regulating, using your presence to downshift its nervous system. This mutual regulation goes both ways. Studies show that petting an animal can lower a human's cortisol levels, decrease heart rate, and even elevate serotonin and dopamine levels, neurotransmitters associated with mood, motivation, and pleasure. This means that the presence of your pet isn't just emotionally comforting, it's neurologically therapeutic. There's a feedback system in play, one that enhances emotional stability and physical well-being for both species involved. Some people assume that because animals don't speak in words, they lack complex emotional states. That assumption is incorrect and outdated. While pets don't use language the way we do, they communicate and experience emotion through sensory systems, body language, and neurochemistry. The limbic system, the part of the brain involved in emotional processing, is present in all mammals and many birds. Oxytocin is produced in the hypothalamus, a structure that's evolutionarily ancient and conserved across species. So, when we talk about love, loyalty, and trust in pets, we're not anthropomorphizing. We're describing real biological phenomena. This science has implications for how we treat our pets. If we reduce our relationships with them to just feeding, walking, or disciplining, we miss the core of what they are designed to do: connect. When a dog acts out due to separation anxiety, or a cat becomes withdrawn after a disruption in routine, it's not bad behavior, it's a disruption in the oxytocin loop. They are experiencing a form of emotional dysregulation not so different from what humans go through during periods of isolation or stress. If we acknowledge that pets form real attachments, we can respond not with punishment, but with presence, consistency, and care. Importantly, this bond is not dependent on verbal interaction or shared goals, the way human relationships often are. With pets, the primary requirement is presence, touch, tone of voice, eye contact, and consistency in behavior are all cues that reinforce the oxytocin loop. These cues are absorbed through the sensory pathways and processed by the nervous system, solidifying trust and emotional safety over time. The more consistent and attuned we are, the more robust that loop becomes. Even short daily rituals, feeding, grooming, walking, become emotionally significant when done with attentiveness. These moments are not just tasks. They are repeated opportunities to strengthen the neurochemical bond. From your pet's perspective, these rituals represent stability, care, and emotional reward. The repetition builds not only habit, but trust, and trust is biologically coded in oxytocin. In the natural world, predictability is often a matter of survival. Animals, whether wild or domesticated, rely on consistent patterns in their environment to feel secure and to regulate their physiological and emotional states. This principle carries over profoundly into the lives of our pets. Routine, seemingly mundane to us, is deeply meaningful to them. Predictability creates safety. It creates a neurological environment where the stress response system can stay regulated, and the animal can operate from a place of calm rather than fear or hypervigilance. The brain's primary job is not thinking, it's predicting. It scans for patterns, detects changes, and prioritizes information based on whether it's expected or novel. In animals, this predictive function is highly tuned to environmental cues. When events unfold in familiar sequences, waking, feeding, walking, sleeping, the brain learns to anticipate them. This anticipation is not just cognitive, it's chemical. Neurotransmitters like dopamine are released in expectation of rewards, and these cycles regulate mood, energy, and motivation. In pets, predictable routines help anchor these chemical rhythms, creating a baseline of emotional safety. Dogs, for example, thrive on structured daily life. They anticipate morning walks, mealtimes, and sleep schedules. When these events happen consistently, it not only provides them physical regulation, but helps their nervous systems know what to expect. The autonomic nervous system, the system that manages stress and relaxation, functions best in a predictable environment. Without it, dogs can become anxious, agitated, or even depressed. That's not just anecdotal, it's observable in cortisol levels, behaviors like pacing or whining, and disruptions in sleep and digestion. Cats, while more independent, are also highly sensitive to changes in routine. Though they may appear aloof, their internal systems are finely attuned to environmental regularities. Feeding at a consistent time, using the same litter setup, or even maintaining the layout of a room can affect how secure a cat feels in its territory. Sudden changes, like travel, house guests, or moved furniture, and trigger stress responses, including hiding, aggression, or changes in appetite. These are not signs of stubbornness, but physiological indicators of a disrupted predictive model in the brain. Smaller pets, rabbits, guinea pigs, birds, function the same way. A sudden shift in lighting, noise, or feeding schedule can spike their stress levels, compromising not just their mood, but their immune function. Chronic stress, triggered by unpredictability, elevates cortisol, which can suppress immune responses, increase inflammation, and reduce lifespan. Predictability, on the other hand, allows for consistent cycles of rest, digestion, social interaction, and play foundational processes for a healthy organism. Routine also fosters trust. When a pet knows that you'll return at a certain time, feed them in a specific way, or respond consistently to their needs, they learn to rely on you. This is not a simple habit loop, it's a trust signal coded into the neural fabric of their brain. Every time a predicted event occurs as expected, it reinforces that the world is safe, the caregiver is dependable, and the environment is stable. These are the conditions under which emotional bonds deepen. Trust is not built on grand gestures. It is built on the quiet, invisible pattern of repeated, reliable behavior. This is especially important in rescue animals or those with a history of trauma. Their stress response systems may be hyperactive due to past unpredictability. For them, even small deviations in tone of voice, timing of meals, or gestures can be perceived as threats. Over time, consistent routines help rebuild neural pathways associated with safety. As predictability increases, the sympathetic nervous system, responsible for fight or flight, can begin to downregulate, and the parasympathetic system, responsible for rest, digestion, and healing, can activate more regularly. Even the way we leave and return home matters. A rushed exit or dramatic reunion may seem harmless to us, but can cause confusion or overarousal in pets. A simple, consistent cue, like a short goodbye ritual or a calming routine upon return, helps them interpret what's happening. Over time, these cues create neurological associations that reduce anxiety. The goal is not to eliminate stimulation, but to make stimulation understandable and predictable. Predictability also enhances training. When cues and consequences are consistent, animals learn more quickly and retain information longer. This is because the neural pathways associated with behavior and reward are strengthened through repetition. Inconsistent reactions, however, create confusion and can erode learning. If a pet is sometimes rewarded for a behavior and other times punished or ignored for the same action, it creates what's known in neuroscience as an unstable reward system. This unpredictability is not just frustrating, it can induce chronic stress. Ultimately, pets live in a world largely controlled by us. They don't have calendars, clocks, or the ability to plan. Their sense of time and sequence comes from repeated environmental cues and daily structure. When we provide that, we're not just organizing their day, we're organizing their brain. We're reducing the energy they spend trying to decode the world, and we're allowing that energy to go toward play, affection, curiosity, and rest. The human voice is one of the most powerful tools in shaping emotional and physiological responses, not only in other people, but in animals as well. Pets are not simply hearing the sounds we make. They are processing tone, rhythm, pitch, and cadence with extraordinary sensitivity. These vocal elements communicate emotional states long before words do. Animals, especially domesticated ones like dogs and cats, have evolved to attune themselves to human vocalizations in order to predict behavior, respond to social cues, and regulate their own nervous systems accordingly. Your voice is not just background noise in your pet's environment. It is a primary input, shaping how safe or stressed they feel in any given moment. When you speak to your pet in a calm, low, rhythmic tone, you are activating their parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for rest, digestion, and relaxation. This is not metaphorical, it's neurobiological. The vagus nerve, a key component of the parasympathetic system, is directly influenced by auditory signals. Research shows that soothing vocal tones can lower heart rate and reduce cortisol levels in dogs and other mammals. In contrast, sharp, unpredictable, or loud tones can trigger the sympathetic nervous system associated with the fight or flight response, even if the content of the speech is not threatening. This means that your tone of voice, independent of the words you choose, has the power to shift your pet's internal state dramatically. Dogs, in particular, have a finely tuned ability to detect subtle variations in human vocalizations. Studies using functional MRI scans have shown that dogs process emotional tones in a region of the brain similar to where humans process emotional prosody. This indicates not just a behavioral adaptation, but a neurological one. When you speak to your dog with kindness, reassurance, or excitement, their brain is mapping those cues and adjusting internal processes like breathing, heart rate, and hormonal secretion. The voice becomes a regulatory force, an anchor of predictability and emotional safety. Cats, while often seen as more aloof, are also highly sensitive to voice tone. Although they may not always respond overtly, their ears, eyes, and body posture often shift in reaction to changes in vocal pitch or volume. Many cats respond to high, pitched, affectionate tones with slow blinking or tail flick, subtle but clear signs of emotional processing. In multi-pet households, voice tone can act as a signal that influences the group dynamic. A soothing voice can de-escalate tension, while a raised or harsh tone can create ripple effects of anxiety throughout the environment. Birds, particularly parrots and other vocal learners, demonstrate an even more direct relationship with human speech. These animals not only perceive but mimic human tones, and they often do so in context-sensitive ways. A parrot that mimics a scolding tone may not understand the language, but it clearly understands the emotional weight behind the tone. Their mimicry is often a reflection of the emotional environment they're exposed to, reinforcing the idea that vocal tone is a powerful emotional transmitter between species. The effects of voice go beyond immediate emotional reactions. Over time, the way we speak to our pets shapes their baseline expectations of the world. A household where calm, consistent tones dominate creates a neurological environment of safety. Conversely, inconsistent or aggressive tones can lead to a chronic state of hyperarousal in pets, particularly in animals that are predisposed to anxiety or have experienced trauma. Their brain learns to stay on high alert, constantly scanning for threat, which can interfere with learning, digestion, sleep, and social behavior. This is particularly important during training or correction. If a pet makes a mistake and the correction is delivered with frustration or anger, the voice tone becomes associated not with the behavior, but with fear or stress. This makes learning less effective, as the animal's brain is now focused on emotional survival rather than behavioral change. In contrast, corrections delivered in a firm but calm tone are more likely to result in learning and behavioral adjustment because they keep the pet's nervous system in a state conducive to absorbing new information. Your voice also becomes a cue for attachment. Just as infants recognize and are soothed by the sound of a parent's voice, pets develop strong associations between specific vocal tones and feelings of safety. These associations are built through repetition and predictability. Saying your pet's name with a consistent tone, using specific phrases in a reliable context, and avoiding erratic changes in volume or pitch all help create an internal map in your pet's brain, a map that tells them when they are safe, when to engage, and when to rest. Even silence, when intentional and attuned, plays a role. Pauses in speech, changes in rhythm, and stillness of voice all send signals to your pet about the emotional atmosphere. A quiet, grounded tone can reassure a stressed animal more effectively than physical touch in some cases. This is because auditory cues are often processed faster than tactile ones, and they influence broader areas of the brain, including those responsible for emotion, memory, and spatial awareness. When a pet chews your favorite shoes, barks endlessly at the window, or refuses to come when called, it's easy to label the behavior as bad, defiant, or disobedient, but to understand animals more deeply and to strengthen our connection with them, we must recognize a fundamental truth: behavior is communication. Every action a pet takes is an expression of an internal state, physical, emotional, or psychological. What looks like misbehavior on the surface is often a signal, a message, or a coping strategy that reflects how the animal is feeling and what it's experiencing in its environment. Animals do not possess the capacity to verbalize their needs or discomforts the way humans do. Instead, they rely on body language, vocalizations, posture, and behavioral patterns to express themselves. A dog that barks incessantly when left alone is not trying to annoy the neighbors. It may be experiencing separation anxiety, a condition rooted in a biological stress response. This is not simply an emotional issue, it's a neurochemical cascade involving elevated cortisol levels, activation of the sympathetic nervous system, and the absence of the calming presence that regulates the animal's sense of safety. The barking is not random. It is the animal's attempt to reestablish contact, safety, or predictability in a moment of distress. Cats, often more subtle in their behaviors, may urinate outside the litter box, scratch furniture, or hide excessively. While these behaviors are frequently seen as problematic, they are often signs of underlying stress, medical discomfort, or environmental dissatisfaction. A cat that urinates inappropriately might be marking territory due to a perceived threat, reacting to a new animal in the house, or experiencing pain that alters its usual habits. These actions are not expressions of malice or defiance. They are adaptive responses to conditions that the animal cannot articulate in words. Birds might pluck out their feathers, scream, or display aggressive behaviors when their needs for stimulation, attention, or security are unmet. These behaviors may seem dramatic or unprovoked, but they are clear attempts at signaling distress. In the wild, social animals rely heavily on visual and auditory cues to maintain cohesion with their group, find food, or avoid danger. Domesticated birds, especially those in isolated or unstimulating environments, may replicate this signaling in more exaggerated ways due to the lack of appropriate outlets or feedback from their environment. It's also important to understand that behavior is shaped by reinforcement, what gets rewarded or ignored. Animals are constantly learning, even when we are not actively training them. If a dog learns that barking brings attention, even negative attention, it may continue that behavior because the consequence reinforces the internal drive behind it. Similarly, a pet that is punished for a behavior without understanding why may not learn what to do differently, but will instead associate the punishment with fear or confusion. This is not just a learning issue. It becomes a neurological pattern that shapes how the animal interacts with the world. Fear-based behaviors often get misread as stubbornness. A dog that refuses to go into another room or walk on a certain surface may not be disobedient, but afraid. That fear could stem from a prior negative experience, a lack of exposure, or even sensory discomfort. The refusal to move is a form of communication, an attempt to say, "This doesn't feel safe." Interpreting that behavior as a challenge to authority misrepresents the animal's needs and can lead to responses that increase anxiety rather than reduce it. Even more subtle behaviors like excessive licking, yawning, or turning away can be signs of stress or confusion. These are known as displacement behaviors, actions that arise when an animal is caught between competing drives or emotions. A dog may lick its lips not because it's hungry, but because it's anxious. A cat may suddenly groom itself when faced with a confusing situation. These signals can be easy to miss, but they offer crucial information about what the animal is experiencing on a sensory and emotional level. By approaching pet behavior as a form of communication rather than an act of willful defiance, we create space for empathy, observation, and understanding. It requires us to slow down, to look beneath the surface, and to ask, "What is this animal trying to tell me?" This approach aligns more closely with how the animal brain functions, not in terms of right and wrong, but in terms of safe or unsafe, regulated or dysregulated, needs met or unmet. When we reframe behavior as a signal instead of a problem, we begin to build a relationship rooted in trust, responsiveness, and mutual respect. This shift in perspective doesn't mean ignoring boundaries or giving in to every demand. It means recognizing that those demands, or behaviors that resemble them, are often the animal's way of seeking balance, comfort, or understanding in a world they depend on us to interpret for them. The more fluently we read these signals, the more effectively we can meet their needs, reduce their stress, and guide their behavior through compassion and clarity. Mirror neurons are specialized cells in the brain that activate both when an individual performs an action and when they observe someone else performing that same action. Originally discovered in primates, these neurons are now known to exist in a variety of mammals and birds, and they form the foundation of empathy, social learning, and emotional attunement. In the context of pets, mirror neurons play a profound role in shaping their behavior and emotional responses, particularly in their interactions with humans. When a pet watches your body language, hears your voice, or senses your mood, it is not merely observing. It is neurologically resonating with your internal state. Dogs, for instance, are incredibly attuned to human facial expressions, gestures, and vocal tones. Through mirror neuron systems, they can experience a version of what you are feeling. If you are stressed, they may pace, whine, or withdraw. If you are calm and joyful, they are more likely to settle, play, or seek closeness. This is not a learned trick or conditioning. It is a built-in neurological system that allows them to synchronize their emotional state with yours. This co-regulation is why pets are often considered emotional barometers in a household. They don't just witness your emotional shifts, they experience them internally and adjust their behavior accordingly. Cats, while more solitary in nature, also exhibit mirror neuron-driven behaviors, especially when they form close bonds with their humans. A cat that mirrors your routine, responds to your tone, or curls up with you during times of sadness is not acting randomly. It is responding to subtle cues through sensory input, and its brain is mapping your emotional state onto its own. This is evident in how cats often adopt the sleeping and waking rhythms of their human companions, or how they become more vocal or affectionate during times of human distress. They are observing and absorbing your cues through visual, auditory, and tactile channels, and adjusting their internal states in response. Birds, especially parrots and other intelligent species, show clear evidence of mirroring behaviors. They mimic not only human speech, but also laughter, crying, and emotional tones. These repetitions are not just mechanical. In many cases, birds repeat phrases or sounds at moments that reflect the emotional context in which they were first heard. A parrot may mimic laughter during moments of group excitement, or may imitate soothing words when someone is upset. Their brains are not only recording these sounds, but encoding the emotional associations tied to them. This mapping suggests that mirror neurons in birds function similarly to those in mammals, linking observed emotional expressions to internal emotional responses. This neural mirroring has significant implications for the emotional well-being of pets. Just as a child can become dysregulated in response to a dysregulated parent, a pet's stress levels can rise in response to human tension, conflict, or inconsistency. Their brains are designed to model social input. When the input is calm, predictable, and affectionate, the animal's nervous system remains balanced. When the input is chaotic or aggressive, their system may enter a prolonged state of arousal or withdrawal. This is not about behavioral training. It is about the biology of shared emotional ecosystems. The nervous system of the pet is, in a sense, being trained by the nervous system of the human. The relationship between mirror neurons and emotional learning is also why pets can learn routines, social cues, and behavioral expectations without formal training. A dog may learn to wait patiently at the door, simply by watching you go through the same steps before leaving. A cat may learn that the sound of keys signals your departure and respond with a particular pattern of behavior. These are not just associations. They are internalized through observation and mirrored emotional responses. The pet learns not only what happens, but how it feels to anticipate it, respond to it, and recover from it. Understanding the mirror neuron system also sheds light on how trauma or chronic stress in the household can affect pets. An animal that is constantly exposed to shouting, conflict, or unpredictability may not understand the content of the situation, but its brain mirrors the stress. Over time, this can lead to hypervigilance, behavioral issues, or even physical symptoms. Conversely, in a household where emotional regulation is modeled consistently, pets are more likely to exhibit calm, trust, and social ease. Their ability to thrive is not just dependent on food, space, or exercise, but on the emotional tone set by the people they live with. When a pet responds to your sadness with closeness or mirrors your excitement with playful energy, it is participating in a silent neurological dialogue. Its mirror neuron system is reflecting your internal world, translating emotional signals into physical behavior. This biological connection is what makes the human-animal bond so deeply intuitive. You don't need words to explain how you feel. Your pet feels it with you through a shared network of mirrored emotions and synchronized brain activity. Touch is one of the earliest and most primal forms of communication. In the animal world, it serves not only as a means of bonding and comfort, but also as a regulatory mechanism that deeply affects physiology and emotional balance. For pets, physical contact with their human companions is not merely pleasant. It is neurologically transformative. The skin, rich in sensory receptors, sends direct signals to the brain when touched, triggering a cascade of responses that influence heart rate, stress hormone levels, and social bonding chemicals. When you pet your animal with intention and sensitivity, you are not just offering affection. You are shaping their neurochemical environment. At the most basic level, touch stimulates the release of oxytocin, often called the love hormone. Oxytocin plays a central role in attachment, trust, and social bonding. When a dog rests its head on your lap or a cat kneads your chest, these moments are driven in part by a desire for physical closeness that promotes oxytocin release. What's particularly powerful is that this release is mutual. Both the human and the animal experience elevated oxytocin levels during calm, affectionate contact, reinforcing the emotional connection and creating a feedback loop of safety and intimacy. This is why physical closeness is often a go-to behavior for animals when they or their human companions are distressed. The benefits of touch extend into the realm of nervous system regulation. Gentle, rhythmic petting has been shown to reduce cortisol levels in dogs, cats, and even small mammals like rabbits. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, decreases when the body receives reassuring tactile signals. The parasympathetic nervous system is activated, allowing the animal to shift from a state of hyperarousal into one of rest and restoration. In animals with anxiety or trauma histories, consistent, predictable touch can be a powerful tool for downregulating fear-based responses and establishing a baseline of safety within their nervous system. Touch also plays a key role in interspecies communication. Because pets do not use language, the way we handle them conveys messages about our intentions, our mood, and our attunement to their needs. A rough or hurried touch can be experienced as a stressor, especially for more sensitive animals. On the other hand, slow, pressure, consistent contact, such as long strokes down the back or soft circular rubs behind the ears, communicates safety and attunement. The brain of the animal interprets this input as a sign that the environment is stable, that the human is present, and that the social bond is secure. This form of communication through touch is especially evident in how animals groom each other in social groups. Licking, nuzzling, or leaning against one another are behaviors that serve to reinforce social bonds and reduce tension. When a human replicates this sense of contact through brushing, massaging, or even just lying next to the animal, they are participating in a cross-species ritual of connection that has ancient evolutionary roots. These actions signal inclusion, acceptance, and mutual care, all of which are critical for an animal's sense of belonging and psychological stability. Touch also serves a diagnostic function. Subtle shifts in how an animal responds to being touched can reveal physical discomfort, emotional distress, or even neurological imbalance. A dog that flinches when its back is stroked, or a cat that recoils from a once loved spot behind the ear, may be communicating a problem that warrants closer attention. These micro-responses are not just behavioral quirks, they are signals from the nervous system. Attuned touch, therefore, is not only therapeutic but informational, giving the human insight into the inner state of the animal in ways that visual observation alone cannot provide. The timing, rhythm, and quality of touch also matter. Consistency builds trust. If physical affection is only given sporadically or unpredictably, the pet may struggle to understand the parameters of safety and closeness. Over time, this inconsistency can create confusion or even mistrust, especially in animals with sensitive temperaments. In contrast, a regular, gentle touch, integrated into daily routines, becomes a stabilizing force. It becomes part of the animal's internal clock, a moment of reassurance that helps them regulate transitions between activity and rest, engagement and solitude. Touch also intersects with memory. Animals remember how they were handled, and those tactile memories shape future interactions. A pet that has been treated harshly may initially resist touch, but with time, patience, and consistency, positive tactile experiences can help rewire that history. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections, means that healing through touch is not only possible, it is biologically likely when the right conditions are provided. Every calm stroke, every gentle hand, contributes to the rewriting of an internal script from fear to trust. For senior animals or those nearing the end of life, touch becomes especially important. As mobility, vision, or hearing decline, tactile input becomes a primary means of connection and comfort. These animals often lean more heavily on physical contact to feel grounded and reassured. Even brief moments of touch, holding a paw, stroking the fur, or resting a hand on their body, can bring significant relief from the disorientation of aging or illness.